The shocking truth behind Bayliner boats is something every boater whispers about, but nobody wants to admit out loud. You've probably heard the nicknames Bottom Liner Crappy, Binliner, and wondered if these floating fiberglass nightmares are really as terrible as everyone says. Here's the mind-blowing part. Bayliner sells more boats than almost any other manufacturer in America, with thousands of happy owners cruising the waters every weekend. But here's where it gets controversial. The same company that owns the prestigious Sea Ray brand also owns Bayliner, yet one is considered yacht royalty, while the other is treated like the village idiot of the marina. The twist? What if I told you that the real shocking truth isn't about the boats themselves, but about the people who buy them and the snobbery that permeates the boating community? Here's where things get really interesting. Since the mid-1980s, Bayliner has been owned by Brunswick Corporation. Yeah, the same Brunswick that owns Mercury Marine. But wait, it gets better. They also own Sea Ray. That's right. The boat brand that turns its nose up at Bayliners is literally their corporate sibling. It's like finding out that the popular kid and the class nerd have the same parents. One marina mechanic explained it perfectly. Bayliner is the Chevy of boats, but honestly that might be giving them too much credit. Another comparison I heard was that they're more like the Ford of the boating world, built for the masses, not for class. Let's talk about what makes a Bayliner a Bayliner. The construction methods are where the rubber meets the road, or should I say where the fiberglass meets the water. These boats are often built using chopper gun construction methods for certain parts of the hull. For those who don't speak boat builder, that's basically the spray and pray approach to fiberglass work. Faster and more economical than hand-laying every layer. Now, before you panic, let me clarify something. Chopper gun construction isn't inherently bad. Many reputable manufacturers use it for certain applications. The difference is in how it's applied and quality controlled. When done right, it can produce a strong, reliable hull. When done to meet aggressive price points, well, that's where the reputation comes from. One owner mentioned the delightful experience of stepping onto their older Bayliner's deck. You also have the feeling your foot is going to go through the bottom every time you jump a cruiser's wake. Another charming feature, the cabin apparently smells like a fiberglass factory for months. As one reviewer eloquently put it, what do I like most about Bayliners? The fact you can smell the resin cure for a whole boating season, if not longer. The thin fiberglass hulls on older models are legendary. We're talking about hairline cracks that appear faster than wrinkles on a Florida retiree. The joke goes that Bayliner engineers ask themselves, how thin can we make this fiberglass before it technically stops being a boat? Now, before we dive deeper into why Bayliners have earned this reputation, and whether it's actually deserved, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what I'm about to reveal next about the real reason behind Bayliner's bad reputation might just change how you look at every boat at your local marina. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets complicated. Bayliners were never meant to compete with your Patriots or your Cobalts. They're the gateway drug of boating. They're designed to get Joe Sixpack and his family out on the water without taking out a second mortgage. The philosophy is simple: build the most affordable boat possible. Strip away the fancy gel coat, use entry-level components, and make it just seaworthy enough to survive a calm lake on a sunny day. It's like comparing a Toyota Corolla to a BMW. They'll both get you there, but one will do it with heated seats and the other will do it with a check engine light. Now here's where we get to the meat and potatoes of the Bayliner problem. The boats themselves might be entry-level, but the real issue, the owners. When you create an affordable boat, you attract buyers who otherwise couldn't afford to be on the water, and that means you get a lot of people who bought a boat for all the wrong reasons. As one seasoned boater explained, Their market tends to attract buyers whose primary interest in boating may not be becoming real good at it. They buy for status, to keep up with the Joneses, for social entertainment reasons, because they always wanted a boat, for fishing, and so on. The result? You get that stereotypical Bayliner owner at the boat ramp, the one who treats navigation markers like suggestions, thinks no wake zones are for other people, and believes that weight capacity is more of a guideline than a rule. Let's talk engines. In their quest to hit rock-bottom prices, Bayliner made some interesting choices. While other manufacturers were using modern oil-injected outboards from Mercury and OMC, Bayliner was slapping on Force outboards, engines so outdated they required premix fuel like your grandpa's lawnmower. Here's the convoluted history. Force engines started life as Chrysler Marine outboards. When Chrysler had to divest their marine division in 1984, US Marine, Bayliner's parent company, bought the whole operation. When Brunswick acquired Bayliner in 1986, they inherited these engines. The joke was that Force stood for fix or repair constantly, eventually. These engines were notoriously underpowered. It was like putting a go-kart engine in a minivan and wondering why it won't get up the boat ramp. The running joke was that a Force-powered Bayliner would plane, eventually, if the wind was right and nobody ate a big breakfast. But here's the kicker. Mercury, also owned by Brunswick, actually improved these engines in the mid-1990s, adding Mercury lower units and ignition systems. They finally discontinued the Force brand in 1999, and since then, all Bayliners have come exclusively with Mercury engines. So if you're looking at a post-1999 Bayliner, at least you know the engine comes from a reputable manufacturer. Here's a plot twist that might surprise you. Modern Bayliners aren't actually that bad. The quality issues that plagued the brand in the 1970s and 1980s have been largely addressed. Post-1990s models show significant improvements in build quality, and boats from the 2000s onward are generally considered much more reliable. The company seems to have realized that cheap and total garbage don't have to be synonymous. Newer models feature better construction techniques, improved components, and, miracle of miracles, hulls that don't feel like they're made of paper mache. Several owners of new Bayliners report being genuinely happy with their boats. One owner of a 2000 model said they'd owned it for 15 years with no major problems beyond routine maintenance. The brand even underwent a complete redesign in 2023, with a new logo, tagline, and refreshed model lineup. They've brought back the trophy fishing boat line and introduced innovative designs like the Element series with its M hull design. It's clear they're trying to shed the old reputation while maintaining their core mission of affordable boating. Let's talk money, because at the end of the day, that's what Bayliner is really about. You can get a 26-foot cruiser fully loaded for less than $50,000. Try finding that deal with a Sea Ray or a Chaparral. For many families, it's the difference between boating and not boating. One Bayliner defender made an interesting point. I am on my third Bayliner and made a profit of $1,000 on the first, a loss of $2,000 on the second. And I reckon my current boat is worth at least $2,000 more than I paid. So much for that terrible resale value everyone talks about. If you're still watching, drop a comment below. Are you Team Bayliner or Team literally any other boat? And while you're at it, check out our previous video. To truly understand the Bayliner phenomenon, we need to rewind to 1957 when J. Orrin Edson founded the company in Washington state. The vision was revolutionary for its time: make boating accessible to the average American family. This wasn't about creating floating palaces for the wealthy. This was about getting regular folks out on the water. The company's growth was explosive. By the 1980s, Bayliner had become the world's largest manufacturer of recreational boats. Think about that for a second. Not the most prestigious, not the most expensive, but the largest. They were the McDonald's of the marine world, and I mean that in both good and bad ways. The turning point came in 1986 when Brunswick Corporation acquired Bayliner for $425 million, equivalent to over $1 billion in today's money. This is where the story gets really interesting. Brunswick didn't just own Mercury Marine, they had a whole portfolio of boat brands at different price points. They positioned Bayliner as their volume brand, the one that would bring in the masses, while Sea Ray and others catered to the upscale market. Interestingly, J. Orrin Edson didn't just fade away after selling Bayliner. He went on to purchase a majority stake in Westport Yachts in 1992, applying his volume production techniques to the superyacht market. When he passed away in 2019 at age 87, he left behind a legacy that fundamentally changed recreational boating, for better or worse. Let's get specific about models, because not all Bayliners are created equal. The Capri series, or as the haters call it, the Crappy, was their entry-level runabout line. One owner described the experience. Every time you hit a wave, the whole boat flexes like a potato chip. The Sierra line was their cruiser series, and these actually weren't terrible boats. Sure, they had their quirks, like that infamous carpet glued to every surface in the cabin, but they offered legitimate overnight accommodations at a fraction of the price of competitors. The 2655 and 2855 Sierra models became incredibly popular, and not just because they were cheap. With beams around 9 foot 6 inches, they were wider and more spacious than many boats several feet longer from other manufacturers. Then there's the Jazz series, bow riders that were Bayliner's attempt at the sport boat market. These were, well, let's just say they were better at being boats than they were at being sport boats. The wake they produced was about as clean as a toddler's dinner table. The Trophy series deserves special mention. These fishing-focused boats somehow escaped most of the Bayliner hate. Built with a different philosophy, function over form, they developed a loyal following among serious anglers who cared more about catching fish than impressing people at the marina. Here's something people don't realize. Most Bayliners come with engines from major manufacturers. The larger models typically featured Mercruiser stern-drive engines. The same 3.0, 4.3, 5.0, and 5.7-liter engines you'll find in much more expensive boats. The good news, parts are everywhere and any mechanic can work on them. The bad news, Bayliner often paired these engines with the bare minimum horsepower for the hull size. It's like putting a Corolla engine in a Camry. It'll work, but you're going to be that guy doing 45 in the fast lane with a line of angry boaters behind you. One owner put it perfectly. My Bayliner will plane, eventually, if the wind is right and nobody ate a big breakfast. Even the outboard models have used Mercury engines exclusively since 1999, when the Force brand was finally discontinued. So while older Bayliners might have those problematic Force engines, anything from the 2000s onward at least has power plants from established manufacturers. Here's where Bayliner ownership gets really interesting, because these boats were bought by first-time owners who didn't know a bilge pump from a bimini top. Many used Bayliners on the market have been criminally neglected. We're talking about boats that haven't seen an oil change since Bush was in office. The first Bush. But here's the flip side. A well-maintained Bayliner can actually be fantastic value. One long-term owner shared, "I've had my 1990 Bayliner 2655 for 15 years. Changed the oil religiously, kept it covered, and did basic maintenance. The mechanic says it runs like new, and I've spent less on maintenance than my neighbor has spent on his Sea Ray's air conditioning alone. The problem is finding that unicorn. The Bayliner that was owned by someone who actually read the manual and followed it. It's like finding a used rental car that was driven gently. Theoretically possible, but good luck." The Bayliner hate reveals something fascinating about boating culture. In many ways, boats are like rolling or floating status symbols. Your boat says something about you, whether you want it to or not, and in the hierarchy of marine status, Bayliner sits somewhere between an inflatable kayak and an actual boat. But this snobbery has created an interesting counterculture. Bayliner owners have developed a thick skin and a sense of humor about their boats. They've embraced the hate and turned it into a badge of honor. There's even a Bayliner owners club with thousands of members who share tips, stories, and jokes about their Bayliners. One member summed it up perfectly. Yeah, my boat's a Bayliner. You know what else it is? Paid for. Here's something nobody talks about. Bayliner's reputation varies dramatically by region. In the Pacific Northwest, where the company was born, they're just another boat brand. But head to the Great Lakes or the East Coast, and the snobbery reaches new heights. One dealer explained it to me. In Florida, where everyone and their grandmother has a boat, Bayliners are just part of the landscape. But in places where boating is more exclusive, that's where you see the real hate. It's also worth noting that in freshwater environments, Bayliners actually hold up better than in saltwater. That thin fiberglass and basic hardware that everyone complains about, it lasts a lot longer when it's not being eaten alive by salt corrosion. So that Bayliner on Lake Michigan might actually outlast the Sea Ray sitting in a Florida marina. Despite their reputation, Bayliner has actually introduced some clever innovations over the years. They were one of the first manufacturers to offer integrated swim platforms as standard equipment. Their beam-forward design philosophy created more interior space than traditional designs, and their modular construction approach, while contributing to that cheap feeling, actually made repairs easier and less expensive. They also pioneered the concept of the turnkey boat package. While other manufacturers sold you a boat and let you figure out the rest, Bayliner was packaging boats with trailers and offering complete ready-to-go setups. It was genius marketing that made boat ownership feel less intimidating to newcomers. Let's talk real numbers. A new entry-level Bayliner typically costs 30 to 50% less than a comparable Sea Ray or Chaparral. That price difference can be tens of thousands of dollars, money that could go toward a truck to tow it, years of marina fees, or your kid's college fund. But here's where it gets interesting. While everyone jokes about Bayliner's terrible resale value, the actual dollar depreciation is often less than premium brands. You can't lose what you didn't spend in the first place. A boat that costs $30,000 less new might depreciate $10,000 less in absolute dollars over the same period. The boating community's attitude toward Bayliner reveals something deeper about human nature. It's not really about the boats. It's about class, status, and the need to feel superior. Every hobby has its hierarchy, and in boating, Bayliner sits firmly at the bottom. But here's the thing, while the Sea Ray owner is making payments on their second mortgage, the Bayliner owner is out on the water having just as much fun. Sure, their switches might fall apart and their cabin might smell like a chemical factory, but they're making memories with their family without going bankrupt. So what's the shocking truth behind Bayliner? They're exactly what they claim to be, affordable boats that get families on the water. Are they perfect? No. Will you impress the yacht club? Definitely not. But they've introduced more people to boating than perhaps any other manufacturer. The real shock is how much hate they get for simply making boating accessible to the middle class. Whether you're captaining a mega yacht or puttering around in a Bayliner, we're all just people who love being on the water. Subscribe now for more brutally honest boat reviews. Hit that notification bell and drop a comment. Are you Team Bayliner or Team Binliner?